We want to know what happens to the graph of this function 1 over 7 times square root of x minus 5 plus 3 when you compare it with the graph, or you start with the graph of f of x equals square root of x. So I'm going to start with writing the 4 different things that could potentially happen to a function HSRV, wherein we start with h, we check if there is any horizontal shift. Now how do you know if there's a horizontal shift to your function? One of two things will happen. Your x term will either have a constant added to it, or it will have a constant subtracted from it. If a constant is added to x, then it means that your graph shifts to the left, and if a constant is subtracted, then it means that your graph shifts to the right. Now in this case, you can very well see that what you have is x minus 5, which means we're looking at this case x minus c, where your graph shifts to the right. So that means that step 1 in your transformation is that you're going to move the graph right by 5 units. Now step 2 is to check if there's an S, which means if there is a stretch or a shrink in the transformation. You find out if there's a stretch or shrink by checking if there's a constant that's multiplied to your function, or if there is a constant that's simply multiplied to x. Now in this case, you'll see that there's a 1 over 7 multiplied to the entire function, so we're looking at this case. So we're going to neglect this case completely. Let me also mention that when c is multiplied to f of x, your stretch or shrink is vertical, and in this case it's horizontal, but we're not going to concern ourselves with this case since there's no constant multiplied to the x except 1, so this case is void. And how do we know whether the vertical thing that happens is a stretch or a shrink? Well, once again, there's two possibilities. If your constant c is bigger than 1, then you're looking at a stretch, and if your constant c is less than 1, then you're looking at a shrink. So in this case, since your constant is 1 over 7, it's a number less than 1, so you're looking at a shrink. So step 2 is going to be to shrink the graph vertically by a factor of 7, since you're multiplying by 1/7. Okay, now step 3 is to check if there's any R, which is to say, are there any reflections? And well, reflections could happen in two possible cases. If you have a negative sign to the f of x, or if you have a negative sign to just the x. Now in this case, you'll see that there are no negative signs to either the x or to the function. So in this case, I would say that there's no reflection at all. And lastly, we're looking to see if there's any v, that is there any vertical shift? Now a vertical shift is characterized by two things. Either your function itself will have a constant added to it, or your entire function will have a constant subtracted from it. If a constant is added to your function, then it moves up, and if a constant is subtracted from your function, then it moves down. And in this case, sure enough, you'll see that you have a plus 3 added to the entire function, so you're looking at f of x plus c, so your graph moves up. So step 3 of the transformation is that your graph, you will move the graph up by 3 units. So those are all the transformations that you're going to make to get g of x.